UAE so
Remember you were me about. So you just build a system.
I want a practical example of them and give look. Give him example of two man was talking. First man and Maria Barreta sondang simbuaran yang mau supply. So he gets water and him deliver him. Karim every day go to supply. He makes fast money, very fast. And there's this other guy when I sit down and planning study more psychology and business attitude man business now. Eventually he creates a pipeline. So while that first guy wears himself and then eventually he dies old and tired, doesn't make that much money. But this guy builds this pipeline. At the end of the day, I'm just so I'm told you focus on building the system that will take care of itself. I'm just talking about financial freedom. It's not financial security like us now. All of us, most of us in telecom and financial security. Suppose telecom fire you go worry number 2, you die. But people like that, they don't focus on financial security. They focus on financial freedom.
So the card, basically how much time it's electronic.
It's about
I'm describing 2 plus something, the difference between assets and liabilities. Very simple. Our accountants were confusing you definition. What he says is assets are things that put money into your pocket. Liabilities are things that take money out of your pocket.
Let's see. Cars are liable. It's straightforward.
If digital is charging you too highly, it becomes a liability to you. It's just spending and spending and spending. Go for something that will keep you going. If your car is a liability, meaning that you're spending so much, do away with it. Nanarap something to become financial freedom. You don't focus on little nitty-gritty things. I'm true in a way. Like Steve Jobs is a perfectionist or something. Steve Jobs is a perfectionist. He focuses on the details. But I'm talking other people's time, other people's money.
Use them.
Use them. Use them more. If you cannot do the job, hire someone. In a way, that's okay too.
I'm talking about not gonna diversify any.
Not gonna diversify.
I'm talking through here. Actually, I'm through.
You focus on a line of business.
Yeah.
Focus, you hit him hard straight. Put
Man, and I'm carrying out, Then blame, not all longer towers. He owns almost 80% of the buildings that are Togo Boy and Pagayla and Bloman. 60%, so to say. Some of Wageni village, all hotels, some hotel there. Now he lives in Brisbane. There's got a couple of hotels or something in Brisbane. So I'm Kiramna, this is what he said, No, Mr. Wangata, I don't work for money. Money works for me. Money is my slave. No, let me pay the 10,000. You know what I do? I play golf. That's my full-time job. I'm Mr. Losra, I'm playing golf. I'm play golf. If it needs to give money, I give money where it is necessary. Something I'm talking about. You must buy a house, you buy a second one, you sell him one block. Most important thing, you can have the asset, but don't be cash flow poor. Because when you cash flow poor, you run into problem. You go into then remember making you go into bank problem with the banking. So you must have this cash flow. So first property exchange, second one exchange, selling one block. You build him the cash flow be more right now, okay, you can build him. Because once you see him holding, you start going to some me experiencing will talk through him.
Like 1 plus something Robert Kiyosaki I'm talking about. First me follow him, you understand me. Don't if you want to be rich, you buy assets and you sell liabilities and all. What do you say? If you want to be rich, you buy assets and then you sell your liabilities. So the most critical thing is we identify which are the assets, which are the liabilities. Anything we have.
It's confusing a little bit, but you will sit down and analyze it.
Like for example, mindset from the normal employee, you save up, corner. You buy one the Land Cruiser straight. To you, that's a liability. You only kill yourself. But to a businessman, it's like you buy and go. I mean, you do your business to such a point that this Land Cruiser becomes a reward to you. It's not something you will die for. It becomes a reward. This is the two different kind of mindsets.
Probably to put them more straight.
But plus something to Robert Kiyosaki and Donald Trump or Dr. Yamato. Business is all about creating value.
It's all
Creating
about
value
money.
is like from nothing, and then you create something from nothing. Something. It's all about value. If you can create value, then you have business. Business is all about creating value. And if people are willing to pay that at that value, that's it. They will buy it. So
It's
you just
like-
creating this level value, or so you house, I want to house.
I'm all programmer, all online, all entrepreneurs. Sometimes, like before Facebook come up, there was MyNet or MySpace or stuff, but this young man came and create something a little bit better than what it was. It's just like Land Cruiser, before Stout stuff, all the Land Cruiser. But then the new Land Cruiser was, you creating value. A lot of people spend money to pay for it. From landline to mobile phone. So entrepreneurs are basically people who try to find solutions. But the ones that are driven by money are the wrong motives.
Yeah. Like, narado to Mr. One Bell Street, no, Tok Robert Kiyosaki, no, Santosin. Lack of knowledge is risky. Risk is not risky. If you have knowledge, it's not risky. Lack of knowledge is risky. So by me, normal employees will say that going into investment is very risky. That's because we lack knowledge. Robert Kiyosaki would have to say that shouldn't be an excuse for you because you have to gain the knowledge. So lack of knowledge is risky. Investment is not risky.
That's why a lot of us we let the government do the investment for us.
That's because we're too scared.
Yeah, we're scared. You see, the thing is,
So that's why you pay blue, you look and pay whenever blue, you whatever pay sleep blue. You see NPF contribution. You're not directly doing the investing. Someone else is doing the investing for you.
yeah, that's what Robert Kiyosaki said. It's a retirement fund.
Like Rich Dad Poor, Robert Kiyosaki told him you should not work for money. From an early age, you should never work for money. Meaning that you work now, people that pay you or they don't pay you, I'm not an issue. You don't work for money because I want to pick the mindset. He was trying to drive that into Robert and Dawson. Never work for money. Money must work for you. So Robert Kiyosaki can make you work, but he doesn't care about pay. So that's the mindset. If you're in an employment now, big interest in your life to become an entrepreneur, you should never work for money. Whether you get paid or not a work. You have to work and work and work because what you invest now, Robert Thompson, will affect 5 years down the line. So that means that you work, go on time, the company time and finish. You just do something else to add the value to your life. Keep adding value. Because five years down the line, this value will translate into
Money.
money. So it's the creation of value. Who's talk somebody and talk those things? It's amazing.
Yeah, but
I listen
once
to
you
this.
once you start listening to it and you
Yeah.
start making logic out of it, you start figuring, and then you say, oh, yeah, that's true. Damn. I mean, some of us did some practical things that we went before listening to these things. We go. Then after listening to these audios and watching the videos, I started to get things into perspective and say, okay, I did that without realizing that I did. I've done that, and I kind of said no. But it really tells you, teaches you how to see things at a different perspective. Somehow, God said, I'm looking for something.